3,
Not ready.
2, 1. Good morning. We are live. It's Friday, 8 a.m. Flex your muscles. Let's get spiked. Let's get pumped. December 16th, 2016. And it's anything goes this week. So we can talk about, I listed a bunch of things on Facebook yesterday that we could talk about, things that are sort of top of my mind. I think the elephant in the room is the fact that we're getting into year end. So we have, the question of whether or not and this is what I posted about actually in the Bookkeeper Revolution group yesterday. We're getting into the end of the year. So the question is, are we revving up and trying to get more in at the year end, or are we already winding down and trying to take it easy for the holidays? And a lot of the people were kind of chiming in the way I expected, which is that, this week, it's kind of the last week where, before starting next week, I think that's when people are going to start winding down because we're getting right up into, the holiday season or the tail end of it. And at the same time, I know that I'm getting the calls and a lot of other people chimed in and said that they're getting the calls from the clients who are realizing, hey, I've got just a few weeks left and I need to figure out if I need to pay more payroll or put money into a retirement plan. I don't know where my numbers are at. My books are a mess and I need them cleaned up. So I'm curious, are we getting those calls still, or where are we at?
Hey, Seth, I want to talk about something totally unrelated.
Okay, so give it a minute. Let's just see if anybody has anything to chime in on with this, and then we can move over to your topic or question.
I've got it's Sarah. I've got a master list of year-end chores that I have to do, like engagement letters for W-2s and making sure everybody's got personal use of auto done, things like that, and a whole spreadsheet. So once I get past all that planning, then I can relax and go into year-end, knowing I'm in good shape. And that has made a huge difference. Like loading my W-2 program, making sure that everybody has the what's that program where you test W-2s?
Where you test W-2s?
Yeah, shoot. My brain just went blank. But I have, and then I have a link to transmittal and cover sheets that I have designed for clients. I just have this whole list of getting all the workstations set up for my employees so that the assembly goes really smoothly. And a lot of that is 1099 testing, and that we should have all our W-9s and 1099s tested, by December 15th. So once I get past all those to-dos, then I can have a decent Christmas, because in years past, Christmas has always been this dread before the hell,
Right.
So, yeah. Sarah, are you using Excel or Smartsheets?
Smartsheets.
Thought so.
Yeah. I'm using Smartsheet for anything that I pretty much can use Smartsheet for at this point.
Anything that resembled Excel is in Smartsheet.
Well, the only thing where you can't really get into Smartsheet is if you're trying to use sort of the more complex features that a spreadsheet like Excel or Google Sheets offers. Like just recently, I had to. We're losing people. Everybody's dropping off. Recently, I had to. Let me turn off the sound for people coming in. I'm turning off the doorbell. When you get into things where you're trying to do, like Smartsheet actually recently added, really cool features, filters feature, where you can kind of save filters. It's almost like having reports. But when you start getting into where I recently did something where I really needed detailed, I had a very long list of data and I needed to subtotal it and cut it up all different ways to kind of different kind of reports out of it. That's where it goes beyond what Smartsheet is built to handle. So it was something I wound up doing in Google Sheets. If you have a basic layout, and it's really, that's where, Smartsheet is, I always describe it as spreadsheet meets project management. And, it's perfect for that. I helped somebody this week. It was such a good feeling. I helped somebody actually keep a client that she was considering getting rid of by showing her how to use Smartsheet to handle the process of doing the invoicing for one of her clients. A lot of us kind of shy away from doing invoicing for clients for the obvious reasons. It always comes with a ton of headaches. And I showed her a process that I had built for one of my own clients that really allows you to kind of collaborate with the client, so you can, especially if you're using QuickBooks Online, which at this point I insist on. I won't take on a consulting client in desktop anymore. I'll train people in desktop if that's what they're still using. But if somebody says, I want to come in as your consulting client and I want you to do the bookkeeping and accounting for me, then they're getting migrated to QuickBooks Online, period. Otherwise they can't be a client. I won't, because I can't grow and scale my business having all these different applications that I'm using. Even towards the end of using desktop, I'd made a decision a while back that any clients that I did have on desktop, if we were actually managing the file, they were going into QuickBooks Enterprise, because I didn't want to have 3 different versions of QuickBooks Desktop that I had to figure out which client was on which. It was a pain in the neck. So I want everything homogeneous, streamlined. I want to know exactly what's what when it comes to, and I don't want to have to worry about even from QuickBooks Online to Xero to Wave Accounting to Sage 1, which client is in which and what's the logic behind which one we use. I just want everything streamlined and simple and consistent, and that's the way I'm building and growing my consulting practice. So anyway, without any further ado, Gina, what was your topic or question?
Well, I'm glad Astrid came back, because my question and comment is, Astrid, I want one of your hats.
We were just discussing that right at the beginning, that Intuit sends this stuff out and some people feel slighted because they didn't get one. Just ask. Just probably if you ping Allison Ball, I guarantee you she can send you one.
Oh, I could have used one today and yesterday.
Yeah, it's
Very
cold there, huh?
cold here. Oh my God.
Pam Bingham has one too with a scarf. Did you see it?
Yes, yes.
I was like, OMG, I want one ASAP.
Yeah, Astrid, didn't you say you got the scarf too? It came as like a set?
It came as a set, and I think I was part of a drawing or something. That's what the paper said. That I was part of a drawing, and my name was randomly selected. So I just got lucky.
Good for you.
I just got lucky, and I'm gonna wear it.
Okay, I'm gonna try something, you guys, on the video of social. I'm gonna tweet them like crazy during this call, and let's see if I can get one before the call ends.
That's the way to do it. I've grown very dependent on my Bill.com pens as my stylus. So I'm going to be actually doing a video on how to use these pens, how versatile they are. And I'm going to ask, my call to action is going to be for Bill.com to send me like a case of these.
There you go.
Not your
Those two.
Hey, Ingrid, can you send me a really cute picture of yourself wearing it? Because I'm going to post with you in it. Did you hear that?
Did you say Astrid?
Oh yeah, Astrid.
I think you said Ingrid.
Ingrid. Who's Ingrid?
Yeah.
Sorry, you know what? I have Ingrid on my mind right now because I still fell in love with that session last week. I thought that was so fun. But yeah, Astrid knows I love her. She was in my QuickBooks Self-Employed my session at QuickBooks Connect. I actually blew her up in a picture in my session. Did you know that, Astrid?
I had no
I think I told you. Oh, I hope I told you.
Oh, yes.
I did, right? I'm sure.
Yes, you did. You did.
Yeah,
Oh,
good.
how nice.
If not, then you should be happily surprised.
So another thing I'm doing now that we're closing in on the end of the year is planning my 2017. Like Sarah talked about, kind of getting into the weeds on dealing with the client stuff that we need to deal with. But how many of us are spending time looking at next year and setting goals for ourselves? I'm reading a lot of people on Facebook lately talking about how they're very proud that they had set goals for themselves for this year, and they're now looking at which goals they've accomplished. And there's a good feeling of accomplishment that comes with that when you know that you've set a goal and you know that you've accomplished it. And I think it's important, along those lines to, consider that when we set these goals, we should set, small, easily attainable goals, because that's just sort of psychology. It makes us feel good when we see ourselves accomplishing those things. And then also set the bigger picture goals. And then I like to use Matt Rissel's concept of what he calls the big, hairy, audacious goal, the BHAG. Right? That's like, I look at that as like the crazy over the top, like shoot for the stars. And if you reach the moon, it's still going to be great. You know what I mean? And setting those kind of goals as well. And, I have a template that I use, and I provide and teach it in my 97 and up program for those who are in it, where you can actually lay out all your streams of revenue. And it's done in a Google Sheet, because this is something that goes beyond what Smartsheet is really built to do. And we just look at each revenue stream that we have, and oftentimes there are many that we don't even realize we have. I see Astrid commenting. I'm watching the comments on Facebook, and all these comments are coming in now. It's funny. But I look at each revenue stream, and sometimes I discover that I had revenue streams I hadn't even really considered, or like now I'm noticing, and I hadn't thought about it because I get so busy that, things like my trial balance adjustment template, all of a sudden that's showing up on my radar because people are buying it because it's year end and they're trying to get their trial balances to agree. Which means, Sarah, this is a good time for you to be promoting your product, your trial balance exporter, because this is the time when people
like crazy.
Yeah. So I'm looking at, what streams of revenue do I have? Which ones do I want to focus on? And, one thing I'm doing that I've never really done before is prioritizing beyond just saying, here are my 5 streams of revenue that I want to focus on this year. First of all, I want to narrow that down because even 5 streams of revenue to focus on may be too many. And I'm trying to say, what is my number 1 top priority? Which area do I want to grow the most in my business? Is it the consulting? Is it the training? Within the training, is it, what do you call it? Is it my Patreon subscriptions, or is it, something else? Is it the one-on-one? So I'm really kind of breaking that down and analyzing it. And then, of course, the other thing I'm doing is drinking my own Kool-Aid and investing in my own education. And I've been sharing with some people recently that I'm becoming obsessed with Facebook ads and learning everything I can possibly learn about how to do it and optimize it. And I don't even feel nearly well versed in it to even begin sharing with you yet, like how to do it, because I don't know how to do it yet myself. I'm learning. I feel like I've wasted thousands of dollars this year on it because I didn't know what I was doing. And so I went and invested in some courses that I'm going to be taking. I've already been through one ebook and I've created an ad based on it. Kind of starting from the drawing board. And I'm going to do, what we learn how to do. How many of you have read The Lean Startup?
I love it. I've read it like 3 times, and I even have the audiobook that I'm listening to when I'm driving.
Yep. So I'm really following that formula now, especially when it comes to the Facebook ads of testing and analyzing and then changing and testing and analyzing and changing. And, even this first ebook that I read about, how to put together your Facebook ad tells you, first of all, how to create the ad, how to build it, and how to get the right target audience set up and what the right number of people is in your potential target audience. It's interesting. I'll share this with you. They said that a lot of research has shown that the ideal size of the target audience, and Facebook gives this to you as you're building the ad, is between 500,000 and 1 million people. That below 500,000 is not enough people. Over 1 million is probably not well targeted enough. And this is just based on research, people actually testing and trying and seeing what gets the best results. So for best results, that should be the size of the audience. So I've got an ad that comes right in the middle based on the target audience. It's like 700,000 people. And then the other thing they said that's interesting is, because I'm obsessive about these things. So I'll launch the ad, and then like in 24 hours, if I'm not getting the results I want, I'm like, okay, I got to change something. I got to do something different. And the author of The Lean Startup is Eric Ries, by the way. I see that in the chat. So the ebook that I read is from Kim Garst. She has a company called Boom Social. She's very, very well known in the social media space. So some of you may already even know who she is. What?
Oh, I clicked mute. I'm sorry.
Oh.
I want to tell you to be quiet. I was talking to Penny.
So the what do you call it? The thing they say to do is to give it 3 days after you create the ad, because Facebook needs 3 days to fully optimize the ad. So you can't gauge the results until you've given it time to incubate. And so that was the interesting thing. So as much as I want to constantly change it and obsess about it, I've learned early on now that I need to just let go and give it the 3 days and see what the results are. Meantime, what I've done is I've already gone in and prepared sort of alternate versions of the copy that I wrote, so that if after 3 days I'm still not getting the results that I want, and I'm actually fairly certain at this point that I won't be, I'm already ready to go in there, edit the ad, and drop in different copy. And that's what it's going to come down to, is trying something different, trying different copy, trying different target audiences. Right now, I'm basically just targeting people who've shown in one way, shape, or form on Facebook that they have an interest in QuickBooks, right? Excuse me, but what I'm going to do next, because I know my target audience are people who have an interest in QuickBooks and who also like to watch YouTube videos, right? because that's my audience, or mostly people who find my videos on YouTube. So I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to probably add YouTube into the mix in terms of the interests, and that's probably going to skyrocket the audience size to like 20 million, and then I'm going to have to add in more things to narrow down the audience to get it back down to somewhere between 500,000 and 1 million. So there's an infinite number of ways that we can, you know, sort of play around and change this stuff to get the results that we really want, and that's what I'm highly focused on, because I'm convinced without question that Facebook ads are the way to go. I don't know how to do it properly yet, and then when I learn how to do it, I'll either tell people go sign up for Kim Garth's thing, because that's what I did and I learned how to do it and it worked, or I'll come up with my own version of how to do Facebook ads for accountants and bookkeepers or something. So that's kind of where I'm at, you know, going into the end of the year and looking at, you know, what do I want to do next year, you know, the high level stuff, and more I'm trying to say, you know what, I don't want 5 streams of revenue. I can have 5 streams, but I really want to focus on like 2. Right? And say, I'm going to focus on growing these 2 things really aggressively. You know, going into this year, I had said that I was going to do consulting, and I was really only going to service the entertainment business, not the entertainment business, the real estate industry. Entertainment was there, but it was kind of on the back burner. But it was real estate and startups. And I started out the year strong that way. And then, you know, I did what now I look back on as a mistake, but I took on some big clients who didn't fit that criteria. And frankly, I live to regret it, because the whole reason I had established that I wanted to focus on the industries that I wanted to focus on was based on a criteria that had to do with sort of the level of complexity of client that I wanted. And I broke the rule, took on a client that required invoicing, right, which is one of my rules. I don't want to do invoicing for clients. Too many headaches. And next thing I know, like the hamster in the hamster wheel, trying to keep up and manage this, and it's anything but easy. You know, and that's when I ended up building my Smartsheet thing that I use, which helps, but it's still not ideal. And the client informed me last week that they gave me like their 30 days notice, which is required in my agreement, that it would be their last month with me, and I was relieved, you know, because I'm the type of person that will sit here and try and make it work. I will try like crazy and do whatever it takes. You know, I don't want to like let a client go unless I really, really have to. And it wasn't a relationship thing. It wasn't like they were, difficult to work with or anything. It was the project itself that was difficult and made it challenging. And so when they did give me the notice that they were parting ways and going to look for somebody in-house, I actually wrote back immediately and say, I agree. I think that's what you need. It's just the nature of it is such that it requires somebody who can really be focused on them every single day of the week. And that's not what an outside consultant does. You know, my agreement itself, the scope calls for weekly bookkeeping services, which generally speaking means once a week I'm going to do all the updating that I need to do on their books. And if I need to do an occasional follow-up in between, fine. But this particular client has required follow-ups almost every single day. There's been something that was needed that couldn't wait. And so that's been frustrating for me, and I'm sure frustrating for them. And it's not their fault. That's just their business, and they didn't know how to represent it properly when we were doing the original, back and forth about what the scope of the job was. So anybody else have anything they want to share? I'll shut up.
We lost Adam. I was going to ask him about his year-end goal setting for Profit First.
Adam's here. I see him at the bottom of my screen.
He's back.
Oh, you want me to talk?
Yeah.
I talk so much during our call, Seth. I don't know when to talk now.
Well, everybody else who's not here during our weekly calls wants to know about your Profit First status.
Okay, yeah, I was just certified 2 days ago for my Profit First. I finished the certification. And so, that being said, I think I got about more calls of marketing and branding. I'm going to change my website to include a lot of the Profit First stuff on there. And then I've already gotten two of my existing clients we're in the process of converting to Profit First. So, and then there's a big argument. I don't want to say argument, but sort of discussion about whether you put it in your pricing, whether the packages you offer, because I offer 3 packages, whether you put that in there and they take it or leave it, or you can kind of separate it out. So I'm kind of testing the waters before you're in, whether I'm going to put it in my packages and you have to take it, or sort of siphoning it out, because I know people who do both.
Wait, put what in your packages?
Profit First.
Oh, the actual Profit First option. Okay, got it.
So your goal is profit first starting January, well, not starting, it's already happening, but.
Yeah, starting like now.
Going
Yeah.
to be there.
Yeah. And I'm already, in November, well, last month actually, November, we had my niche is lawyers and legal professionals, and we had a trade show that was canceled here, but they're doing it next year. And I'm actually in talks of getting Mike McAlowitz to come here and speak at that trade show for me.
Nice.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Adam. That's awesome that you got certified.
Yep.
That's
Next enrolled agent. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm a third done. So I'm testing for the part 2 on January 4th, and then probably the end of January I'm doing part 3.
Nice. So there's 3 parts in total for enrolled agent, and the CPA exam is still 4 parts, right?
Yes.
It's been a long time. What are the 4 parts now? It's
BEC.
what?
BEC. So it's like basic economical concepts.
Okay.
BEC audit. FAR, which is, I don't know, financial. And tax.
Okay. Interesting. It's been so long for me.
All my friends are taking it right now, so.
So in the chat, Alexa's asking, what's involved in becoming a Profit First consultant? I think you have to, first of all, join Mike's Profit First.
Yeah.
Right?
In terms of, she wants to know about cost. Is that what it says? It's like $396 a month or $4,000 a year, depending on how you want to pay it. But once you do that, you kind of go through the process of implementing Profit First in your business, and then you also have to pass an audit showing that you've implemented it successfully, and sort of explain Profit First as if you were talking to a client, and then you have an annual certification exam to pass.
Very cool. Sorry, I'm just looking over here and catching up on the chat.
So certification is annually. You have to do that test every year.
Yep, because they want to make sure they want to make sure you're on top of it, more or less.
And then just so it's clear, becoming a Profit First consultant means that A, you're versed in their system and using it in your own practice, and B, able to, put other clients on that system. And it's a system that's based around, kind of managing the finances of the business based on that Profit First formula that says first we take the profit out and set that aside, and then we pay the expenses. So we treat our own profit almost like as an expense that gets first priority.
Yeah, I mean, we have a motto: when in doubt, open an account. So I mean,
when in doubt, do what?
Open an account.
Open an account. So does it get like unmanageable though with all these different bank accounts that you have to keep open? Or
I was wondering that myself.
No, because it's actually a little more efficient because there's less to reconcile, there's less to really manage in each separate account. So instead of like you have one account with all this stuff in it, you have 5, 6, or 7 sometimes accounts where you have it's really streamlined and trimmed down. So
I always think of, I had this one client years ago who the business was really substantially owned and run by the father, and his wife, I think almost out of pity, he had her come in there as like an office manager type role. And then his daughter was really the true operations manager who ran the business. And the mother was a sweetheart, but she was like very gullible. And anytime she walked into a bank, she would walk out having opened up a new account. Because you know how they'll try and sell you and say, hey, you need a new, you need to open up a new account. And if you do, we give you this, this, and that, and we don't charge your fees for 6 months. Anyway, it got to the point where, but here's maybe the difference, Adam, is it got to the point with them where they had all these different accounts and they really didn't have the money to spread around among them. So it was a constant, sort of another hamster wheel thing where it was like, all right, which account is about to get overdrawn? We need to transfer money to make sure it doesn't. And that itself became a project, is making sure that we transferred money around to make sure that none of the accounts got overdrawn. And often there were times when there just wasn't enough money to cover all the bank accounts. And at a certain point, I had to sit down with the father and say, listen, I know she's your wife and I know you care about her very much, but at a certain point we need to pull the weight on this. And even though she might, feel offended in some way because she opened up these accounts, at the end of the day, we got to get these accounts closed. We got to consolidate because it's becoming unmanageable. So, but I guess
part of this project first model,
profit first.
Physically separating money.
Yeah, it's profit first, and it's where you actually, Sarah, remember like in the old days where you'd have different jars and you'd put money in different jars.
Yeah, or envelopes in the freezer.
Well, this is the banking equivalent of that, where you open up different bank accounts. So you have a bank account for the payroll, you have a bank account for the profits that you've set aside for yourself. Well, I understand where you're coming from, Sarah.
Yeah,
but
I use sub accounts within the accounting.
But there's a logic to this.
Registers where I hide money.
Right. But there's a logic to this, Sarah, where it's been proven to work, where people are using the system to a very good end to be able to put away money and actually grow and have the money that they need when they need it.
So psychologically, the process of physically moving money.
And it keeps it out of reach, because I've done that, Sarah, where I've put like fictitious checks in a bank account to reduce the balance to try and reserve money. But back of my head, I know that that's just fictitious. So when the time comes, if I need to, I just go in and either edit the amount or delete that fictitious check altogether. And go use the money that I need. So yeah, I mean, look, they've been doing this for a while, and I'd say it's fair to say it's been proven to work.
And to your point that if it gets too unruly and you're needing that money, then you get into this transfer nightmare.
So Adam,
that's not going to happen. That we explicitly teach out that is not the system we're doing. We're not transferring back and forth. We're doing one direct transfer twice a month on a kind of consistent schedule to build structure. And if you're transferring back and forth, if you can't afford enough in your operating account, it means you're not running your business efficiently as possible. It means your costs are way too high. And the first thing we do when we get in there is looking at your costs, doing an analysis and saying, hey, are these necessary? Can these be negotiated down, or can they be eliminated right away?
Right. And Adam, what you said to me the other day when we were discussing this, I thought was very interesting, because I said to you, what if I don't have the cash flow to support making that transfer of that profit that I'm supposed to set aside? And so I transfer that money, but now I don't have enough money to pay my bills. And your answer to me was very interesting. What did you say to me? Do you remember?
I don't remember offhand.
You said that it basically forces you to be more creative about.
Oh, yeah. And that's the whole thing that Mike stresses is we gain innovation by our scarcity. Is like, innovation is created in the garage and stuff like that when you don't have the resources.
You have to have pain to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of forcing that pain point, but at the same time, we have the basic 5 of profit first is you have an income account. So basically, all the revenue starts there. That's the home base of the revenue. And this way you can kind of see the ebbs and flows every month of how is your revenue generated and how are the ebbs and flows each month or each quarter, and we can analyze trends in the revenue. You have a tax account, which basically is setting aside 15% of your, we call it real revenue, and it's basically paying your tax. The business is paying your taxes, and it's paying your personal taxes. So it's paying the corporate and personal taxes of the owners. So we have a owner's pay account, which is basically giving the owners a consistent compensation base instead of just, I'm just going to draw money out whenever I want to.
Right.
So you're kind of like an employee in a sense where you have consistent schedule of draws. And then we have a profit account, and sometimes if the business is in debt, if you have 10% profit, you're putting 10%, twice a month. If you have debt, you're basically at the end of every quarter, we're going to hit that debt with one big chunk.
Yep. And look, I know that when I think it's fair to say almost universally, when my perception at least is that I have less of a resource, I'm going to use that resource much more efficiently. And that's what cash is. Cash is a resource, right? So when I'm of the mindset that I have plenty of money, I'm not going to manage it that carefully. That's just our nature, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go and I'm going to say, oh, let me spend, Stephanie Travis. wrote the most amazing article on Between Wall and Main about a month and a half or so ago, talking about how cash is not a reward, and we often treat it as such. You know, and she talked about how a lot of us get into that mindset where we feel like there's abundance because things are going well, and so we want to reward ourselves by spending that money, and then we wonder why we eventually get back to a place where now we don't have the abundance anymore because we spent it, right? So this like a system that basically forces you to run in a mode, and it actually reminds me a little bit, I think, of like what the lean startup kind of teaches us is you run on the same basis all the time. You know, you run like a startup, you run like a company runs when they have no money, so that you run lean, you know, and that you run with the mindset that you have, even though you might have money set aside now, you still maintain the mindset that, you know, how would I do it if I had no money? You know, if I couldn't afford to spend frivolously on every little app that's out there, you know. I know that's one of my big downfalls is I spend 14 grand a year.
That's what got me this year.
Yep, I spend 14 grand a year on apps, and so that's one of the things I've been looking at is how do I consolidate? And a big portion of what I spend is on all these file management apps. So guess what? As soon as I'm done recording all the video content for this course that I'm doing, I'm going to be canceling almost all of those services. I'm going to keep probably 2. And I was going to dump ShareFile actually, except that I just learned yesterday that ShareFile has new pricing plans, which I need to call them on because apparently you can get unlimited storage with them for like $100 a month, whereas now I have a plan.
Their to-do list, their new feature of a to-do list in requesting and having conversations on a row like in Smartsheets.
Yeah,
very interesting.
They have they've been rolling this out now. It's still very new, but yes, it looks very interesting. But my main concern with ShareFile was it was so expensive because you're limited. I mean, I was putting a lot of files in there this year, and all of a sudden I got this extra charge for like $1.40 from ShareFile, and that triggered me. And I said, "Uh-oh, why am I getting this additional charge?" Because normally I just pay per quarter, and I knew it had to be that I must have hit my bandwidth limit or my storage limit, and I went in there, and sure enough, I had just slightly exceeded my 20 gigabyte limit. So I immediately began to move a whole bunch of stuff off of ShareFile and over into Box where I have unlimited. But then I learned this week that they have new pricing plans because they have to stay competitive with services like Box.com. And I'm sure that's why they're doing it. So apparently now if you call them, they have plans where you can get unlimited storage and hopefully bandwidth as well. I'm going to find that out today.
Well, and I just wanted to mention too that the reason for joining Profit First for me at least was not only to like offer this awesome service to clients, but also to kind of grow my practice. I don't know if anyone knows Cindy Tomlinson, but my coach is always talking about her. She went from 17 clients to now 18 months later, 71 clients.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, it's just in the works.
That's like great news to some people. And to me, I'm like, no.
Right.
I like being small.
Right. Well,
my whole goal isn't to like grow as big as I can, but it's to sustain a certain level of production where I'm not, where I'm not struggling for work.
What's funny though is, I mean, it's not really funny, but $400 a month is a lot of money. I don't imagine a lot of new businesses can afford that. Like, how do people?
And then there's also a mastery level that's $10,000 a year.
I know. In fact, I had a private.
Billy Ann subscribes to the mastery level.
Right.
So and I'm like, wow, that's quite a bit of change.
Yeah, and then do you pay for that monthly, or do you pay it all up front?
Both. You have an option.
You have the option. So at least you have the monthly option.
So the option is $1,000 a month or $10,000 a year.
Okay, so it's $12,000 if you pay monthly.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, that's a ton of money to be spending.
There's advanced training and resources that they give you, and I know a lot of the mastery members have told me, I know a couple of them on Facebook, and they've told me that it really is worth the investment. I mean, that's how we're selling it. It's
almost like a franchise, like
it's a
part of this club, and then you get all that extensive training and support.
It's more like it's a subscription company. I mean, they're gaining their revenue off our subscriptions.
See, what it has me thinking about is, that I need to put a system together where I can be charging $1,000 a month.
Don't we all?
$1,000 and up club.
Well, I do have, I added it to Patreon recently. I do have an option that includes a weekly 1-hour session with me on top of everything else that's offered through Patreon, which is actually $1,500 a month. But that includes an hour of training each week, which normally would be $250 each. So that's, you know, that would be $1,000 a month right there, plus everything else that I offer on Patreon. But I just kind of added that quietly, just in case, because I've learned that if you don't put it out there, you'll never get it. So I added that quietly just in case somebody out there might say, hey, you know what? I could really benefit from a steady weekly hour. And the point of it and the real value of it is the consistency of meeting every single week. Like, how often do you guys meet in Profit First, Adam? I would imagine you have regular, consistent meetings to kind of keep everybody accountable.
I have a week. For me, I have a weekly call with my Profit First coach for now, and then I also we also have a monthly call.
Right.
With Mike and Ron. But there's some people in Profit First is they buy the membership and they don't even do anything with it. I know a member, you know,
I can't imagine spending $400 a month and not doing something with that. That's crazy.
That's part of the
I talked to her on Facebook and I said, what have you done? And she's like, well, I'm not even certified yet. And I've been doing it for a year and I really haven't done much with it.
And yet she's been paying $400 a month.
It's like, if you want to make that investment, you better be putting something into it, because I knew when I wanted to do it, but I knew when I was going to do it, I was going to kick the doors down.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not. I think that's part of the point of it, is you're not going to take it lightly. Because what I've learned, and the reason I set up the program that I just explained in my Patreon, is because the clients that I've had who have taken advantage of it weekly, where every single week we've had a remote meeting and we've gone through whatever it was they needed to go through. You know, in most cases, these were small businesses who, you know, really needed help cleaning up and then maintaining properly their financials going forward. So where we've had a weekly meeting for an hour to an hour and a half every single week, so that we had the consistency and the continuity, those are the ones that have been successful. You know, what happens, unfortunately, all too often is I'll get somebody who comes in and they do a few sessions with me and then they just kind of drop the ball. You know, and then I don't hear from them for 2 months. And once in a while, I'll send out a reminder saying, hey, you know, you really should schedule a session. You know, and they don't, and then they come back eventually, and we're back to square one again. So all the stuff we had done before is kind of lost, right? There has to be consistency with this stuff. Like, even for myself with this Facebook ad stuff that I want to learn, you know, what I now realize is I have to set aside time, probably multiple times a week in this case, where I'm going to spend that time learning more about Facebook ads. You know, whenever I want to, you know, master something. You know, I was watching one of my TV shows the other day, and one of the lines from one of the shows I was watching struck me. You know, this one of the characters made this comment saying, "A warrior trains every single day." You know, and I think that's something that we can really take into what we do. You know, is that every single day there should be some amount of time spent training, learning, growing, you know, advancing our skills. You know, and for me, that's what I have on my calendar as my quote, I call it reading time, right? And really, I should probably better title it and call it like learning time, you know, but that's a 2-hour block of time every single day that I'm supposed to spend. I don't do it a lot of the times, unfortunately, you know, and I know that I should be. That's why I prescribed it for myself on my calendar. There's an appointment on my calendar from 4 to 6 p.m. every single day, Monday through Thursday, I think it is, because Fridays, I assume I'm not going to sit down at that hour and train. But from 4 to 6 p.m., Monday through Thursday, that's my reading time. And that's when I'm supposed to shut off email, shut off Facebook, shut off everything, and reverse the engines for once, because normally I'm producing content all day. So this is supposed to be the time where I reverse the engines and I absorb content and I start learning. But now that I have something that I'm so focused on, I can guarantee you I'm going to start using that time the way it was meant to be used. And every day at 4 o'clock, I'm going to drop everything. I don't care where I'm at. And I'm going to reverse the engines and start getting into learning how to optimize Facebook ads. And I'm going to make sure that by the time I feel like I'm sort of finished, you know, with the immediate sort of Facebook ad learning need, then I'm going to go back to reading and actually finishing the Lean Startup, because I started it and never finished it. And I've done that with so many books, you know, that I start and then it takes me like a year to read a book because I start and stop and start and stop. You know, and that's a problem. That's not the way that needs to be done.
Yeah, I have the same thing. When my daughter goes to bed, it's my kind of learning time. It's that's when I study for my enrolled agent exam stuff, is when my daughter goes to bed.
Right. Yeah, but we have to have that time prescribed.
You should talk about that again, your schedule. You did we did a hangout on that at one point, I thought. Yeah,
I've gone over it, and now it's an integral part of my whole 97 and up program. You know, it's built into that whole first section where, you know, there's a whole exercise I have people do, right? And this comes out of a book that I did actually complete. And one of the reasons it does take me longer, I think, than most maybe now to read a book is I stopped reading books and I started studying them. right? So I was studying a book called The 1 Minute Millionaire, and this book, it teaches you how to think like millionaires do from 1 minute to the next. That's the idea of it. Not that you're going to make $1 million in a minute, but you're going to start learning how to think like millionaires do. And one of the first things I got out of the book was that it points out that, millionaires, people who make a lot of money, they have very structured lives. They know very well what they're going to be doing from 1 minute to the next, from 1 hour to the next. So what they do is they break down your life into 6 major areas, right? And the first one is body, your physical health. And the idea is if I don't take care of my physical health, it's going to be hard to do really anything else, right? So that the physical health really has to be the top priority. I have to take care of my health. Then you get, the mind, right? So we have to feed the mind. That's where the reading time comes from eventually, and I'll come back to that in a minute. So we have body, then mind, then spirit. And that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. If you're religiously inclined, great. Then you follow your religion and you do what you do there. If you're not religiously inclined, like I'm not, it's more about meditation. And I'm constantly telling people about calm.com, which is the app I use for meditation. And really, again, if I'm following my prescription for how to organize my time, then I should be meditating at least once a day, if not twice a day. Usually the ideal is in the morning for 25 minutes and in the evening for 25 minutes using the app. So in the morning, usually sometime within the first few hours of my day beginning. And at night, it's usually pretty much right before I go to sleep. Last thing.
I mean, that app, that Calm, I tried downloading it. I don't know what, maybe I didn't understand it. So it's just basically just ambient sounds to kind of help you.
No, there's guided meditations. When you download the app, you'll see there's.
I know there's like a sea sound and all that other stuff too.
Yeah, you can pick from amongst different sounds and backgrounds. They have choices there, and you can pick to turn that off. That just depends on. That's one of the beauties of it is you can really kind of tailor it to what works for you. I like having the ambient sounds, and I like having the voice. And there's even I didn't notice till recently. But there's controls where I can establish how loud the guided voice is compared with the background sound. Like in my case, I use the sound of the ocean. I find that very soothing. So, but in any case, not to get too far sidetracked in it, part 3 was the spiritual, and that's where really for me the meditation comes in. Part 4 is your time. How do you organize your time, right? And, the time you spend organizing your time. Part 5 is people, the most important people in your life and the time you spend with them. And I think a lot of people get hung up and think that this only means business people, but no, it means everybody. It means your family, the most important people in your life, and actually taking the time to organize how much time you'll spend with those people. And then 6th, the last part, and it's last because it is supposed to be the least, is money, right? So the time we spend making money. Now, ironically, most of us spend most of our time on part number 6. Because it takes the most of our time up, and we live in a society where that's the norm. But so what I did was I took these 6 areas, right? So again, body, mind, spirit, time, money, and people. I took these 6 areas, and this wasn't from the book. This was my adaptation of what I learned in the book. And me being me, I said, let's drop them in a spreadsheet. I said, how much time do I want to spend in each of these areas every day without regard to any limitations on time? And I went through it and I said, okay, so the body would be working out at the gym, let's say an hour a day, right? So 1 hour there. The next part would be feeding the mind. That's when I said 2 hours a day. And then the next part is, part 3 was the spiritual. Well, that's my meditation. Let's call that an hour a day, right? Just rounding half an hour in the morning, half an hour at night. So that's another hour. And then I said, time, the amount of time I spend organizing my time, I probably don't need to do that every day if I have my calendar going and I know exactly how I'm going to lay it out. Maybe once a week for an hour, right? So let's just call that, divide it by 7 because we're just doing daily, for a minute. Then we have people and money. Now, the people that are most important to me, my personal friends, and then my close friends and colleagues, my family, of course, I kind of looked at it and said, well, obviously that's where I want to spend the most of my time, ideally. I want to have the financial freedom to be able to afford to spend all of my time substantially with my family and loved ones. And for me, what that looked like, I started visualizing it, is I want to be able to go to New York a lot and spend time with my family, and I want to go to Florida to spend time with my parents a lot. I want to be able to afford the kind of lifestyle where I can do that often. Right. And so I just started thinking, okay, well, ideally I would spend, during the week, maybe an hour or 2 a day. And on the weekends, I want to spend all day Saturday and Sunday with just family, right? So that's another 16 hours a week. So I started adding all this up. And then the money part I know is basically going to be 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Let's just call it that. Even though most of us as entrepreneurs work much more than that, that doesn't mean that's ideal. What I really want to do is say, I'm on the clock from 9 to 5 and then I'm done, right? Or really in my case, it's more like till 4 because like I said, then 4 to 6 is my reading time. So I added all this up and it came out to like 16 hours a day. And I'm like, there's no way I can do that every single day. And I expected this outcome. I knew it was going to be more than I could do all of this stuff every single day. So then the next phase of the development of it was to lay it out on a weekly, you know, like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Saturday, and then break it down, acknowledging that I'm not going to spend all this time every single day in every area. So then it started to make more sense because then I said, well, the gym is going to be, let's say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and maybe Saturday. Right, so 4 days out of the week, I'm going to spend an hour doing something for my health, whether it's the gym or going hiking or, you know, anything like that. and so then laying it out on a weekly basis, all of a sudden it started to become manageable. And mind you, I was just doing this for myself because I desperately wanted to take what I was learning in this book and actually apply it in my life. And I said, how do I do that? What does that look like? Because all too often I think we read these books, you know, and it kind of goes in one ear out the other, so to speak. Like we read it and we have the experience and we say, hey, that was great. That was interesting stuff. Really. And then we start telling all our friends, oh yeah, that was a great book. I got a lot out of it. But then I wonder how much of what we learned are we actually applying in our lives, right? So that's where I said, I need to study books and not just read them and actually go through it slowly and stop at a certain point and say, okay, what is this going to look like? How will I actually apply this in my life? And what I eventually found was that sure enough, when I make myself stick to that schedule, which it's scary to do sometimes because I'm like, you know, and I know a lot of us are like this.
So I want to ask you, how do you stick to that schedule? Because that's tough. I mean, you do it for a while, but then going forward, you kind of...
Let me come to that in just a minute. I'm getting there. So, but there's a sequence to this. So what I did find to kind of reverse engineer that, and this actually kind of answers your question, Gina, because, you know, what I find, like with anything, when I find that something starts working, I get that much more motivated to do it and stick with it, right? If I start going to the gym regularly and I start seeing results and I see I'm losing weight and I'm getting stronger, my stamina is better, my energy levels are better, all of a sudden it's not a chore to go to the gym. I can't wait to do it, right? So what I was finding, because what was getting really scary was this idea of, I'm going to stop at 4 o'clock and not do any more work, not make any more videos, not work on any more client stuff. How am I going to do that and still keep up? And here's what I found is that by doing that, I was so much better balanced. I started sleeping better at night because I didn't have this freight train running through my head the way I normally do because I wasn't so obsessed about working all day long. Believe it or not, by spending less time in stuff, you get less obsessed with it. And what I was finding was that in the hours that I did a lot for myself, you know, I was actually that much more productive and that much more effective at getting done what I needed done. I was getting a lot more done in a lot less time. I wasn't wasting time on Facebook the way I often do. And so how do I stick to that schedule? One thing is in my preset tabs that open up on my browser every single day, my calendar is included. My email is not. Right? Email is a bad distraction, but the calendar is up there front and center. My calendar is almost never closed. It's up there in front of me all day long. I also have, because of Google Calendar, where you can have multiple calendars, and I think you can do this in Outlook and others as well, but I have a calendar that's called my health calendar. And in that calendar is a reminder every 2 hours to get up and go walk and have a snack, a healthy one, hopefully, you know, like an apple or something. You know, but also that helps me balance throughout the day, even while I am working, because we get so hung up on getting focused and staying focused, and we don't realize that by taking those few minutes every couple of hours to kind of unplug, we actually come back refreshed and so much more efficient and effective at what we're doing. So I find that, you know, the way to stick with it is to, when I find myself out of the practice, I make sure I focus on that calendar, because that calendar has those sections built into it, right? I know, you know, during the day, I leave the calendar open so that through schedule once people are taking appointments, but they're only getting on my calendar between the hours of like 9 and 4, basically, right? Because remember, 4 o'clock, it stops. At 4 o'clock, the bus stops and I get off of it and I go learn for 2 hours. Right? And then I'll be honest, there are times where I'm like, there's something I need to get done. It can't wait. It's due tomorrow. So again, it's not so rigid. It's a guide, you know, and I'm not always going to stick to it 100%. And I go into it knowing that, because otherwise I'll start beating myself up for not sticking to the schedule. right? So I have to remember going into this that this is a guide. It's not rigid. But when I do focus on it, when I do force myself to stay focused on it for the most part, what I find again is that I'm better balanced and I get more done in a lot less time, and I don't need to be putting in 80 hours a week. Not only that, but I'm happier, I enjoy myself better, I'm better rested, and again, all those things. So when I start getting that kind of momentum going, I start to realize, holy crap, this feels really good. And for that reason, I'm going to stick with it. Like I said, it's the same. The most obvious example is the one I gave about, going to the gym. And when you start to see results, again, it's no longer a chore. Now it's something I can't wait to do. And so when I get stuck on this schedule and I really force myself to stick to it, I start, again, getting motivated for that reason, because all of a sudden everything starts working. And I notice I'm more focused, and I notice now all of a sudden more money is coming in, because when I'm not well rested, I am so easily distracted. I'll sit there and I'll be working on, let's say I'm trying to clean up a client's bank recs. At this point in my life, I get so bored with that kind of work because I've been doing it for so many years, and it's like I don't even have to think about it, that every 5 minutes I'll be like, what's going on Facebook? Let me check. Did somebody comment on that last post I put up? I'm so easily distracted when I'm tired. So it's become really important for me to be well rested, and I've learned that when I'm well balanced like this, again, the motivation just comes about naturally, where I just keep going and going and going, and I don't want to work past 4 o'clock, because I know that the benefits of sticking with what I prescribe for myself work so well that it's like I couldn't imagine doing it any other way. So that's probably the best answer, Gina, that I can give you about how I stick with it. Some of it is just forced discipline, especially in the beginning. And the best way, like I said, for me to do that is make sure I keep that calendar open all day long. So at any given time, it's just a tab away. I click on it. What am I supposed to be doing right now? Because the calendar tells me. Am I supposed to be at the gym? Then what am I doing at my computer looking at my calendar? Get up off your butt and go grab your gym bag, which is always packed in by the front door, right? And go get to the gym. And go work out, even if you don't want to, because I'll tell you something. I read this on a friend of mine's blog who's a personal trainer, and it stuck with me because it's so true. And he said, I've never, ever regretted going to the gym. I've often regretted not going, right? And when I look at my calendar and stick to that prescription that I've laid out for myself, what I'm finding is that that's my gym in many other forms too, right? That's my mental gym. That's my money gym, right? If I stick to the prescribed time that, between the hours of basically 8 and 4.
You too.
What?
Oh, sorry, my other office mate was leaving.
Oh, sorry. I think I've been running on so long that I hear somebody else talking. I'm like, oh, wait, somebody else wants to talk? Let me shut up.
Okay.
I want to talk.
So,
Totally different this second when you're done.
Harriet, we can barely hear you. You sound like
Okay.
you're a mile away.
I was behind Sarah's friend Archie, who has been hanging out in the corner here.
Oh,
He's disappeared.
I put the headphones to his ears while you were talking, Seth, and he kept on looking over. Come here, Arch.
is he working on his calendar now?
I think so. He's working on where my husband went.
Oh, look at him looking out the door. That's adorable.
He's kind of
Hey,
a
Seth, I have a
dog.
question for you. Totally off, but this is kind of, I need you to help me with it real quick when you have a second.
Okay.
I think it'll help everybody, but it's an Asana question. I think you played in there a little bit. And I don't know why it took me so long to do that task report that you saved my life with. But one thing I can't figure out how to do, when you're looking at your tasks, how do you figure out how to look at, like, let's say you're in a project and you're looking at your tasks. Are you able to see your tasks and then under the tasks you can see your subtasks? But like in the actual layout of the task, not when you click on the task and then it opens on the right. Do you know what I mean? Or do you not know what I mean?
So, yeah, no, I do know exactly what you mean. And this is one of the things that I don't love about how Asana handles it. Because you'll see the subtask and it looks like a main task in that view. And then in a light font alongside it, in that same view, you'll see the master task that it goes with. And you'll also see the master task itself somewhere above that, depending on how many subtasks there are. I don't love how Asana lays that out with the subtasks. It's one of the things that has bugged me about Asana.
So you can see the subtask under the task though?
Yeah, let me show you exactly what it looks like. I'll share my screen real quick.
Yeah, because I haven't been able to see that yet. So maybe I'm missing something.
That's the problem, is it's very kind of subtle. So I'm going to share my screen. So can you see Asana yet?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I can see it. Yep.
Okay, so here's section 2 WordPress, and notice in very light gray it says course 21. So course 21 is the master task here. Section 2 WordPress. Oops, I didn't mean to check it off as complete. Let's section 2 WordPress here is the master task, and in very light font, course 21 is the parent task. I'm sorry, so I said that backwards. Section 2 is the subtask. Course 21 here is the master task.
Huh. Now let me see. I don't think I can. How do you have that set up? The
This
view.
is
What is the
that exact
sorted?
report that you referred to that I created.
Okay.
So this is that
Maybe
exact report where, again, you go and do the search initially, and then you sort by project, and it actually groups by project. That's what's so misleading about it, really, is. And by the way, you can, if you're in this view where you're looking at the details of the task, you can X this out, so you can just see the main list.
Okay, I see. So it's okay. Yeah, what I was hoping that it would do, that it would actually kind of indent and create almost like a tab feeling under the task.
That's what I would like to see.
Instead of it creating.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what I would like to see.
Okay, so it doesn't do that.
Master task, then index subtask. Now, that's why I've been getting very excited about Workflowy. I've been playing around a lot in Workflowy lately. So some of you may have seen that I did a video on this. Right? Going back to the conversation we've been having for the better half of this morning, here's something I'm doing in Workflowy along the lines of what we're talking about. Notice at the very top, so I look at this every day. Workflowy has now become one of the default tabs that opens in my browser. And notice here I have daily objectives first. So right in top of mind every day, first thing in the day, I remind myself that the first priority always is handle any incoming leads, because that's money in the bank, right? And that's our lifeblood. We need that. Second, handle existing clients and scheduling. And then third is the marketing stuff that I do to feed the first two, right? So I just put myself content. One of the things I do to remind myself to stay focused and do that instead of going and messing around on Facebook, and don't get me wrong, I can often be very productive on Facebook. There's oftentimes, first of all, we need that downtime, and that's the social part of my life. That's the people part. So there are times that is perfectly appropriate to be on Facebook. But there are a lot of times I find that I'm on Facebook when I shouldn't be, and I should be focused on this kind of stuff. So one of the things I do is I look at this every day, and this then reminds me that I want to open up Camtasia, because Camtasia is my tool in my toolbox that I use to create my content. So having Camtasia open, and Gina, here's another answer to your question, because this is an example of the kinds of things we can do to help ourselves stay structured, is if I have Camtasia open, I have that reminder on my screen all day that that's what I need to be doing if I'm not busy working with an incoming lead or working on an existing client. Right? And that kind of goes inside of the work time that I prescribe, which again, for me is 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And I also love the fact that at 4 o'clock, I can basically say I'm done for the day. And if I want to, I can just take off at 4, not even do the reading time, go relax, go for a walk, do some extra exercise, put in some more time on my body, on my physical health, So, again, the more I do this and stick to this, the better it feels and the easier it becomes to stay with it, And don't get me wrong, I've fallen in and out of the routine many times over the past year. In fact, as of late, I've been out of the routine, but that's especially going into the new year now, I'm that much more conscious that I want to force myself back into that routine. When I got real focus on this at the beginning of this year, that's when, I had gotten the diabetes diagnosis and I got real focused on eating better. That's another part of the health plan, is eating a healthier diet. And for me, it became paramount because of the diabetes. So I started, minimizing the carbs, jacking up the protein intake. I actually spent some of my learning time learning how to eat properly, especially for a diabetic. And I said, and what I learned very quickly was, for me, it's all about, for years I thought it was about calories in versus calories out, and it's not. For me, it's about how much my body converts carbs into glucose. And I learned that protein slows down the rate at which the body does that. So moral of the story, eat a lot of protein and minimize the simple carbs, especially complex carbs. You can have more vegetables or complex carbs. I can eat vegetables all day long. It's fine. And then recently I said, all right, like I said, I've fallen out of the habits, that I had formed that were good. And I've been eating crappy food again. And I've been eating after 8 o'clock at night. I mean, that's something I've heard for years is don't eat after 8 o'clock at night. And I've noticed a direct impact because now I'm forced to take my glucose levels every single morning, first thing when I wake up, because it has to be fasting. And now I get a clear prescription for how well did I do, right? If I didn't eat good food and if I ate late at night, my fasting glucose skyrockets. This morning it was like 150. It's supposed to be under 120. So that tells me I've got to redirect. I've got to course correct on my eating habits, And so it's things like that, putting things into my day and into my systems that make me aware of whether or not I'm headed in the right direction, and then not beating myself up, because I can do that. I'm my worst critic, right? So not beating myself up when I'm not doing the right thing, but just using the awareness of when I'm not doing the right thing as a barometer for when it's time to course correct, right? So one of my bad habits is, especially if I want to unwind, if I've had a long day, is I'll stay up late and I'll watch TV. I watch Amazon Prime. I love all the DC Comics shows, right? So I can I've been binge watching, DC Comics, the Legends of Tomorrow is what it's called. I've been binge watching that, and I tend to snack when I'm watching TV. I think a lot of us probably do. So what I did last night, at least to make it better, even though I was eating after 8 o'clock, which again is a no-no, but at least what I did was I took out a thing of veggies that we had bought, and I was dipping it in hummus. So at least, even though I'm breaking the rule and eating later at night than I should have, at least what I was eating wasn't terrible. Because normally what I want to do is I want to have a bowl of cereal, and a cereal usually that's high in sugar, like Raisin Bran Crunch or Golden Grams. And guaranteed, when I start eating that stuff at 10 o'clock at night, what my glucose levels are going to do the next morning. They're going to be like 150, 160, and if I keep it up, they'll start going up as high as 180, 190, and then I'm in trouble. Right?
You know what our problem is? Clients who are diet saboteurs.
What do you mean?
We've got a couple clients that and we kid with them every year, like, hi, thank you for our Christmas gift. That huge basket of Savannah Sweets, which is...
I give it away. I give it away before the temptation kicks in. In fact, what I do, I give it to my wife. When I really want to do the right thing, I give it to my wife. And I just say, here, you take this. Bye, Mariette. But that's how I deal with that, because I get usually these gift baskets every year, like we all do, with all this chocolate.
And I'm begging them, like, can it be like meat and cheese or, apples?
Yep.
Harry and David.
So no, and
My housekeeper loves it because she's like, yay, the baskets are here.
But I've learned that, what helped me was having this big veggie thing right on the top shelf in my fridge. So it was right in front of my face, like, hey, Seth, this is what you need to be eating if you're going to snack on something.
Yeah, you have to have it pre-prepared,
Yeah, and it's one of these things you can get at the supermarket where it's got these little compartments, and there's carrots and broccoli and cauliflower and little cherry tomatoes, and, so that, and then I put the hummus right on top of it. So it's like, no, you're not getting the ranch dressing. You're getting the hummus.
All right, guys, I have to go make some money.
Yeah, me too. I got to go talk with Erica. So you all have a great weekend. Gina, today, 2:30 Pacific.
Same thing as what you see is what you get.
Perfect. We'll see you all there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.